One of the things I missed the most about the older leagues of PoE was the ability for characters to survive just on the basis of having the correct flask setup. I think we can all agree that playing softcore Trade League has become a lifestyle that requires a tremendous amount of patience, especially regarding character survivability. It's not uncommon for the average softcore enjoyer to die multiple times per map nowadays due to the strength of monsters. And that's why today I wanted to showcase my in-stacking Molten Strike Juggernaut against some of the endgame bosses in PoE. Although these are not the uber versions of the bosses, I think you'll notice a lot of the decisions I made during these fights will demonstrate just how tanky this build is against certain mechanics. So let's begin with what makes this build so tanky. Since this is an in-stacking build, we'll be pathing across the top of the passive tree, which allows us to grab Chaos Inoculation. Combined with Incandescent Heart, we receive a 25% damage reduction from all elemental damage from hits. The Unbreakable Juggernaut Ascendancy also contributes significantly to this build's tankiness as it applies armor to our elemental damage reduction as well. We also run Determination, Defiance Banner, and 5 Endurance charges to achieve high armor and 90% physical damage reduction. Running this mastery also gives another 10% physical damage reduction from hits since we're immune to chaos damage. Since we have really high armor, we can take advantage of Aegis Aurora, which recovers energy shield on block based off of our armor. Running this with Tempest Shield as well as Glancing Blows on the passive tree allows us to cap our block and spell block chance, effectively allowing us to safely AFK in most T16 maps. On top of that, Aegis Aurora also grants an additional 5% to max cold res, increasing our maximum cold res to 80%. In order to sustain our energy shield during combat, we'll run a Watcher's Eye with ES gain on hit while affected by Discipline. This is especially important for the build to maintain its energy shield at high levels. The reason that we run Viridi's Veil is to gain full crit reduction by equipping a magic ring in the left ring slot. The final layer of defense comes from Natural Affinity, which inflicts the character with Grasping Vines when stationary. Each of the vines will then grant a bonus of 2% chance to deal double damage and 1% less damage taken, which applies a total of 10% less damage taken multiplier when at full stacks. As you can see in the footage before you, fighting Cirrus was fairly easy since most of his abilities were blocked and effectively mitigated. Now, one of the shortcomings of this build in terms of defenses is dealing with damage over time, especially the abilities faced during the Shaper fight. Things like Burning Ground or Cold Dot are also very effective in killing this build during maps. As I mentioned earlier, this is an int stacker build, so it takes advantage of HoWA in order to scale lightning damage. Vengeant Cascade anointed onto Voice of the Storm significantly increases damage output since the projectiles bounce back to their initial location, thereby hitting targets with both the melee hits and returning projectiles. By increasing the number of projectiles from our Helm enchant as well as Fan of Blades on our cluster jewels, we can greatly increase the damage dealt by Molten Strike. Since the projectiles on Molten Strike also don't travel very far, we can grab Point Blank and Precise Technique to get massive more multipliers on our damage. Socketing 2 split personalities at this location on our passive tree will also give massive damage scaling due to their distance from the class starting location. As you can see, there are many synergies at play here that allow this build to feel quite enjoyable in the current state of PoE. As mentioned in my previous video, one of my favorite things about this build is that it allows me to alt-tab as well as respond to messages without being punished for looking away from a map. Although Molten Strike is probably not the most satisfying skill to clear maps with, I think that its single target damage scaling as well as tankiness more than makes up for this shortcoming. Plus, it's not like this build's action speed is even that slow, so you can still clear maps at a fairly decent pace. I really don't want to spend that much time on gem links since they're mostly self-explanatory, so I'll leave a list of them on the screen for your reference. The only thing to take note of is that we don't activate the haste aura. Ball haste is primarily there to activate during maps just for a nice burst of speed or single target damage. Divergent Riposte allows us to gain onslaught on block, and Phantasmal Vengeance generates rage for us when we are hit. If you've been thinking about trying out melee builds for a while now, I think that this build definitely has a nice and comfy playstyle due to its tankiness. The best part about being able to play PoE like this again is not needing to focus on keeping your character alive 100% of the time while in maps. If you want to look at my build in more detail, you can take a look at the POB link in the description. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you all next time.